Hello, good evening. How are we doing, folks? Hope everyone is well. And we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. We're going to wait for people to fill up the room. And just sort my laptop out here. I like to have my laptop on because it means if I'm doing any demonstrations, I can see what's going on there. And, if I'm not sharing my screen when I should be, I can see you guys screaming at me. So, yeah. It looks like we've got reasonable quality stream, which is not bad. Just looking at it on the laptop. Cool. Better than usual. But yeah. So anyway, good evening. You will notice from the title of the stream that this is now called Sunday Night Live at Johnny Lipsham Studios, episode 1. I know I've done lots of live streams before, but I'm just kind of like, I can never come up with a title. So for every show, so this is what I'm going to do, and it's just going to be episode number X for a wee while until I can think of something else, something better to do. Anyway, we have Just Bob here. He says, great news today. Yeah, I've been talking. I did a Facebook Live today on my personal profile on Facebook to talk about moving and stuff. Some of you folks already know about that because we talked about that here on this stream, but I hadn't really done anything on my own Facebook page to discuss it. So that's what that was all about. Mike is here. Good to see you, Mike. And Just Bob says, looking forward to seeing your new studio take shape. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I might actually make a little video on setting up the studio in the new room and the new room without any gear in it, that kind of stuff. I will certainly do something like that, maybe a little documentary type episode, something like that. Maybe a little bit like Joe Gilda's Gildercam, except we'll just call it Lipsham Cam or something, or Lip Cam. I don't know, something like that. Just as a one-off documentary kind of thing of documenting the new studio. And I am, given the fact that the studio room is a little bit bigger, I will probably be putting up a little bit more acoustic treatment than what I've got just now. So I will have to put up what I've got just now, and then, probably in the days after we move, purchase a little bit more, some more bass traps probably, and a few more tiles, a few more of these 1 foot by 1 foot tiles from RLX, which I've got up on the walls. So I think I'll have to do that. I was looking at maybe going with a different company altogether, like maybe Prime Acoustics, but that's like £220, which at the moment I don't have. Business isn't quite yet. Not really got that much in the business account at the moment, so can't really justify that at the moment. So I'll maybe just just as a temporary stopgap, just put up what I've got, live with it for a bit, and then see what happens with other things that I'm going to be doing in the coming few weeks, like my VIP membership, which I know I've talked about a lot. Well, I've just been talking to my guy who is helping build that out, and we are so close. We are so close. We are that far away from launch. That's how close we are. So yeah, we're pretty close to actually launching it and getting it going live and getting people signed up for it. So I'll be sending out emails. I know I have my email list, and I have not actually emailed my email list yet. I've kind of been waiting until, whoops, smacking the mic. I've kind of been waiting until we're a little bit closer to launch VIP so that I can talk about VIP to the email list. And email list folks will get the heads up first on when the VIP is going to launch. So if you want to get the heads up, get on my email list. In the description down below this video, you'll see a link to go sign up for that. Go sign up, get yourself on there, and you'll get my compression video series. You'll get the stems to Chanel, and you can practice on those stems. That song, by the way, is deceptively simple. It sounds like it mixes itself practically, but it doesn't quite. But there are challenges. You'll find the soprano sax, getting that to sit, a little bit of a challenge. But it's the reason why I paired that song up with the compression series is because it's a great way to get your teeth into actually practicing your compression techniques, your slow attack, fast release, fast attack, slow release techniques, to have things either more up front or more set back, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a great little set of stuff that I give you. So you can go and get those. And as I say, you'll get the heads up on when VIP is going to launch before I make any other announcements about it. Andy Arthur is here. Good to see you, Andy, of Thunder Creek Studios. And he says, hey, buddy. And DDD Entertainment, that would be my good friend Meetatrice. And she is here, and she's, hello, music lovers. Awesome. So we got about 9 people, which is kind of a little on the low side for a regular Sunday night stream. So I'm hoping we'll get a few more people in. So, you know, we can kind of just chew the fat and chat a little bit just now until we get a few more people in. And then, you know, I can even take some of your questions just now, actually. If you've got questions, I can take those just now, take a few questions just now, and then we'll get into some songwriting stuff. And then, because I thought we could talk about arranging your song tonight, because it's pretty much second only to actually writing the song. It's the most important thing, because it can make or break your song. If you've not arranged your song well, you can kill a very well-written song with a bad arrangement. So really important that you get the arrangement of your song right before you even start thinking about recording. To be honest, I mean, yeah, sometimes you can revisit and you can go, you know what, this sounds a little flat. Let's add a few things in to make it, you know, to bring it to life a bit. Or let's change up the arrangement a little bit because maybe it's not as good as we thought it was. You can certainly kind of arrange as you go a little bit. But to be honest, the best way is to have the arrangement absolutely nailed down and knocked out before you even get your first scratch tracks laid down. That would be my view on arranging. So we will talk about that tonight. And we've got, we're into double figures. Awesome. We've got 10 people here. Just bear with me 1 second, actually, folks. I just need to go under my desk for 1 second. Because there is something bothering me under here. I need to find out what it is. Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. There's just something on the floor under the desk here that's bothering me. There we go. I think we sorted it. All right, Just Bob says, hit the like button. It's really nice weather this side of the pond today as well. Yeah, we have had fantastic weather today. It's been absolutely glorious. It's been, I guess, just working out the calculation in my head roughly, probably late 70s Fahrenheit here, which would be, I don't know, early 20s centigrade here. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been t-shirt weather, first kind of t-shirt weather day of the year, pretty much. So it's been absolutely fantastic. So I've been out with the kids today, which is where I did my Facebook Live from. I did that from the park down the road from here. So yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at. The VIP is almost ready to go. And I'm working on some new content for that and a new video series for YouTube, for this YouTube channel. having done my Studio One from scratch series, which is now finished, by the way. So if you've not seen any of the episodes of that, there are 10 episodes. Go and check those out, especially if any of you here, I don't think that's the case at the moment, but if anybody watching this is brand new to Studio One, my Studio One from scratch series is going to be perfect for you, because it basically takes you from the very beginnings of you've just installed Studio One to getting recording and getting mixing and getting your music out there to the world. So I'm basically just doing things in the simplest way possible so that you can just get started, get making music, which is what you want to do. And then you can kind of get to exploring all the features and facets of Studio One as you go, really. But really just to get your music out there, that's the most important thing. So Just Bob asks a question. First question of the night. He says, can you automate perceived volume? In some music, you can hear music get louder within a song and then level off to normal volume. Yes, automation is a massive part of the very last phase of mixing, to be honest. Pretty much when you've got your mix done and you're happy with the EQ, the compression, the ambient effects you've got going on, and all of that, and you're about ready to hit print and send it off to your client, think about kind of what you can do to kind of sweeten the mix. So maybe think about how you might bring some elements a little bit further up in the mix with volume automation. Let's say in a chorus. Let's say, chorus is the most exciting part of your song. It's the bit that you want to sell the song to the listener on, is the strength of your chorus. So if your chorus is really well written, really well thought out from a arranging point of view, then really the next big thing is, what are the important elements of that chorus, other than obviously the vocal? Vocal is the song. So, you want to be able to feature that very, very prominently. So here's one thing you can do, just one little automation thing you can do. And that is, you can automate all of your tracks. If you have everything sent to, just create like a mix bus, not your main out fader, your master fader, but another mix bus, another bus that everything is routed to. And then what you do is you open up a volume automation lane on that. And then what you do is, when you get to your chorus, you just draw in a little 2 dB increase in volume just for the chorus, and then drop it back down. And what that will do is that will give a real sense of a little bit of intensity, a little bit of excitement in your chorus that's different from your verses. Now, obviously, there's different things you can do. For example, your verses, you could make almost mono. So, you could have your arrangement, the texture of your music nice and thin for your verses. So maybe drop it down to just drums, bass guitar, vocal, and maybe a little bit of light guitars. Not really a whole lot. Make everything nice and narrow. And then for your chorus, you open everything up. Everything goes out wide. You have like maybe 4 other guitars or whatever, 2 on each side that aren't playing during the verses. They come in the chorus. That automatically is going to give you extra volume. Just having those extra elements come in just for the chorus. And you have them panned hard left and right. And then what you do is that creates contrast in itself. That creates a little bit of excitement that you don't already have in the song. And you're doing that all without automation, by the way. It's just extra elements that are coming in and out of the song. But you can do a little bit of automation. Let's say you've got guitars that are just playing, just a downbeat strum, that just holds for 4 beats in each bar. So it's just literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the chord changes might be. What you can do is you can automate the transients to go up a little bit, like maybe 1.5 dB, and then just kind of like tuck the tail of the sound down a little bit in the mix. Bury the tail just a little bit, and then up for the next strum, back down again, up for the next drum, back down. You can do that on your guitars, and that'll just create a little bit of, they'll just little poke through the mix just a little bit. Especially if you've got them out left and right, they can just like ping, ping. They can come up in the corners, and it just gives a sense of width and a sense of space that you don't already have. And that's really, really simple and yet very effective automation that you can do. So just Bob, I hope that that helps answer your question. The automation thing is you can be really creative with it. You can find elements in your mix that you want to just poke through just once, poke through here, poke through there, and it'll just add interest that keeps the listener's ears fresh, keeps the listener's ears engaged, and keep their mind engaged on the song. And the secret, the real art to it, is to do it in such a way that it doesn't distract the listener from the center point of the song, which is the vocal. The lead vocal is the center point of your whole song. So everything else, automation included, has to serve the king of the song, which is the lead vocal. And if let's say you have a guitar solo, the guitar solo temporarily sits on the throne. Everything else serves that particular element of the mix. And then when the guitar solo goes away, the lead vocal comes back in. You can do that with automation. And you can do that with just very creative, very, very craftful arranging techniques. So that, kind of like they overlap just a little bit. The vocal comes back in just as the guitar solo is just reaching its peak. And then you just automate a fade on the solo electric guitar or solo trumpet or whatever it might be, or tenor saxophone, whatever it might be, whatever your solo element is. And the cool thing is that it can just create a little bit of excitement. So yeah, so I hope that really helps. I know I kind of really went for it there a little bit. But yes, you can do so much with automation. Automation is amazing. And it's something that really, in the style of music that I work in, mostly, which is jazz and kind of acoustic music, various different acoustic musics, I don't tend to do a whole lot of automation. I just don't need it. But it's something that you can certainly do in a lot of other genres, a lot. I mean, I do some, but, hardly very much, really, to write home about. So, yeah, so very well worth digging into lots of automation. You can do too much. You can go over the top. You can do that with any element. You can overdo compression. You can overdo reverb. You can overdo delays. You can overdo anything, to be honest. So, everything has to be in taste, and everything has to be, everything has to serve the song, fundamentally. So we got 11 people here, and I think it's kind of going to settle at that. So Diego's here. Hi, Diego. Good to see you. And Joey Z is here. Good to see you too. And Ray Hunt. Good to see you too. So we got a few people just popping in and saying hello. That's cool. All right. So I'll take a couple more questions, and then because we're at 20 past midnight now, 20 past 6 your time, if you're in the central time zone in the United States. So yeah, we'll take maybe another one or maybe two more questions, and then we'll get into arranging. And we kind of we did a little bit of that there with Bob's question on automation, because a lot of what you can do with automation can be dealt with a good arrangement as well. My good friend Meetatrice, she says, when David is in studio and doing a playback, I open the door, go to the other side of the house to check the sound, but it still may be too heavy with something after a mix. How do I fix it? That's a good question. I do exactly the same thing. If I want to check how big my low end is in my mix, I open the door, I go down the hallway. And if there's lots and lots of bass out there in the hallway, then I know there's probably going to be too much in the mix. And then basically what that means is I just need to come back into the studio with that kind of still fresh in my memory, and I just need to go and dial back those low end elements. It might be a little bit of high pass filtering, or it might be I just need to turn the bass guitar down. Or, you know, I need to look at the EQ of the bass guitar. Maybe I've got a little boost at around 100. And if that's the case, then maybe I just need to pull that boost back a little bit. And then I will keep running the mix. I'll go back down the hallway and check and see if any of those changes have made any difference. And I'll maybe do that 2 or 3 times. So the hallway check or the other side of the house check is a great one to do, because a lot of the time you're gonna find low end issues out that way. So yeah, so you can dial back the low end and then go check it out in the hallway. And if you find that when you get out in the hallway that all of the low end is gone, then you've probably gone a little bit too far. You want to have some. You want to have some sense of, you know, big fat girthy low end. But you don't want it to be overwhelming, you know, kind of like the main element of the mix, which is your lead instrument or your vocal, whatever that is. So yeah, so the elements that you really need to be able to hear when you're down the hallway, because to be honest, you're going to lose some. You are just going your mix is going to collapse a little bit if you're on the other side of the house, because of absorption and reflection. And, you know, phase cancellation, all those kind of things are going to come into play. So bear that in mind, that if you're not in your sweet spot here, this equidistant this equilateral triangle between me and my speakers, as soon as I move outside of that area, then the mix is going to probably sound a little bit different. And especially if I go down the hallway, because the hallway certainly in this house at the moment has lots of mirrors, full-length mirrors. And so automatically I'm going to get lots of reflections, and I'm going to get flutter echoes, and I'm going to get phase cancellation. So some elements of my mix, the further I go down the hall towards the lounge, I'm going to lose some stuff that I'm just not going to hear it. But so long as I can hear the snare drum, the kick drum, at least a chord instrument, whatever that might be, maybe it's piano, maybe it's Hammond organ, maybe it's Fender Rhodes, bass guitar, and the lead vocal. So long as I can hear those 5 elements wherever I am in the room or wherever I am in the house, then, you know, those are the essential things. So I hope that helps. Like when I listen in the car, it sounds funky. Yeah, the car test. Listening to your mix in the car. Everybody should do it, and everybody probably has done it. And it's a good test. And the thing that it really tests, actually, is how much your room is telling you the truth about what is coming out of your speakers, what you're actually hearing. Some people, when they take their mix out to the car, they find that there's absolutely no low end at all, or there is far too much. It's like, you know, the speakers are going, and you know when you've overdone it a little bit. And you're going, how is that the case? Why does the bass sound so loud in the car, and yet there's hardly any in the room? Well, that's because of the acoustics of your room. And that's something that you need to look into. You need to look into some bass trapping, or you need to look into dealing with some room nodes that you might have, or a little bit of comb filtering, or some cancellation. Good way to check your bass in your mix, actually, is just to go stand at the back of your room. You don't have to go down the hallway. You don't have to go out of the studio at all. You can stand at the back. Like if I stand at the back here, there's more bass at the back there than there is sat here. So it is another good way to do it. Always have a reference, a different set of speakers. I have earbuds. They're not in here right now. But usually I have my earbuds connected to my monitor station, and I can check those on earbuds. I've got these I can check it on as well. Particularly, these are great for checking the low end. Earbuds are just as good for checking the low end. And ideally, you want to be able to match the low end between something like earbuds, because earbuds tend to be a little bit hyped. Try and match how the mix sounds through your nice flat speakers, like your PreSonus REC5s, for example, and your earbuds. If you get close, then you're good to go. Dietrich says the drums are too heavy. Well, in that case, you probably want to dial them back a little bit, particularly if it's the kick drum. If it's the kick drum that's too pounding, then yeah, you probably want to just just turn that down a little bit. And again, that could be a room issue that you have. Just Bob says, I tend to play my mix through my speakers and record it to my cell phone, holding it about 2.5 feet away. That tells you a lot what is overpowering. So lets you know if it's pretty balanced. That's true. But again, the slight flaw with that is that you're kind of relying upon the microphone on your cell phone and how good that is or not, as the case may be. It might not capture the broad spectrum of your whole mix. So when you listen to the playback of that on your phone, you may find that it's not actually capturing all of your mix. So you might listen back to it and go, gosh, there's no bass in there. And then you crank up the bass. And then, you know, you go check that on the car and it's just like way too much bass. And that's because the mic on your phone doesn't have the capacity to really deal with the capturing the low end. So it's a difficult one. The best way, if you want to do the cell phone test, is put an app on your phone like Dropbox, and then do your bounce down, you know, print a mix in Studio One, and just send that to Dropbox, to your Dropbox folder, and then when it finishes uploading, your phone will it'll upload to your phone as well, and then you can check it that way, check it through your phone that way. And if you can hear all the elements coming out that tiny little speaker on your phone, and it sounds good, you've got a good mix. Deer Creek says, and Deer Creek, good to see you. He says, if I listen to mixes in the car, the engine stalls out and won't restart until I put on some dance music. That's good. I like that. Yeah, you know what? My car refuses to start if my wife's Krista Berg CD is still in the car. I take that out and I put Michael Brecker on, or I put Steely Dan on, and the car is absolutely fine. It's a miracle. I think our cars have taste in music there, Deer Creek. I don't know. So yeah, so I hope that helps. We've got 12 people here now, so and we're about halfway through. So let's get into talking about the arranging aspect of your song, because you can make it as complex or as simple as you want, really. And I'm not just talking about, hey, verse, chorus, bridge, middle section, guitar solo, out chorus, ending, fade out, whatever. That's the structure. That is the structure of your song. That is the roadmap for your song. And yes, there are some aspects of that which are to do with arranging, i.e. how you get musically from one section to the other, how you're going to get from your verse to your chorus. You're going to have a pre-chorus, which might be 4 or 5 bars long, that kind of like ramp up the tension a little bit. Maybe you've got a climbing bass line, something like that. That will certainly help. There's all sorts of things you can do with arranging to get your song really, really flying. Okay, so for this demonstration, we are going to use this. This is the chord changes to my song Paper Deity from my EP 2 years ago. I'm just going to move my headphones because I don't need those just now. And I'm going to take you through what I did to get between my sections and how I made the whole song fit together and hang together, and, you know, to kind of make it, you know, stand out, keep the listener engaged through the whole song from start to finish. First of all, always good to start with an intro to your song that is related to elements of your chorus, for example. Now, that said, I didn't actually do that. If that's rule number 1, rule number 2 would be, if you don't do rule number 1, rule number 2 is use the chord changes from your verse to set up the listener for what is to come, which is what I did do. So I kind of have that as a vamp. That's kind of where my song started. Andy, I'm going to come to your question in a minute, mate. Okay, about tempo mapping, because we kind of talked about that. I think we talked about that on the Home Studio Trainer Facebook group. And I think really what you're talking about there is how you drag the grid to line up to your tempo. Well, if your song tempo and the event that you have are not in sync with each other, i.e. they're at different tempos, then, or maybe one is in time, you know, maybe it's just not recorded to a click, or maybe it was recorded at a completely different tempo, then what you need to do is, I think I said this to you before, is use the tap tempo. If you do tap tempo, left clicking your mouse button on the word tempo in time to the event as you're hearing it, then the song will, the Studio One song file will change its tempo to fit your event. And it's only as good as your finger clicks, by the way. So if your finger clicks are good and in time and, you know, close enough, then it will work out what your tempo is, and then the grid itself will line up to your event. So you know, I'm not really sure that you know, kind of like dragging the timeline really necessarily works, especially if you have a long event, because if the event is out of time at any other point in the song, it will drift, and then you have to keep going and trying to do that, and it doesn't really work very well, because when you zoom, it doesn't, you know, it affects the whole song. It doesn't really just affect that little portion. So tap tempo would be the easiest way I would suggest, Andy, of doing that. So the whole song lines up to your event. Or failing that, actually in the inspector for that event, typing in the correct tempo, so that it's then in time with your session tempo, or you just change your session tempo to fit the event. Okay, so there's a few different ways you can do it. But yeah, I don't think dragging the grid does anything other than zoom, to be honest. Okay. So hope that helps. All right, so back to Paper Deity. So how do you get into your chorus? So I had a little turnaround. So my verse kind of goes like this. And then we go back round. And here comes the turnaround. And that sets you up for the chorus. Which, as you can tell, has a completely different rhythm to it, and a completely different set of chord changes to it. So there's contrast between the nice big open long chords of the verse, and then in the chorus. So it gets a lot funkier in the chorus, and the arrangement fills out as well in the chorus as well. So you have backing vocals, and then, you know, you have extra guitars come in at that point, and some horns as well. So to get back into the verse, I use the first 4 bars of the yeah, kind of like a combination of the first 2 bars of the verse vamp. But I also used this last little couple of chords from the chorus as a linking passage. So basically I have an F with an A in the bass to G with a B in the bass, which basically, if I take away the A and the B, the kind of like the third in the bass, it would essentially have been F, G to D7 again. So, which kind of works, you know, that G to D works. You know, it kind of has that kind of church plagal cadence kind of thing going on there. Cool. Okay, Andy, that's great, mate. Thank you. So that gets you from verse back into the chorus. So having a good little link and making it familiar to the listener, so they're not kind of like going, okay, I'm starting to drift away, nod off, think about something else. You've got something that they can go, oh, right, okay, now we're going into the next section. We're going back into the verse. Great, I can hear the rest of the story now. So we've got the first verse, which is given us the story, the first part of the story. Now we're ready to get into the second one. Nice43 is here. He says, what's up? Good to see you, mate. Just getting into arranging, actually, is what we're talking about just now. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. So then we go back into the verse. So we have verse 2. And then the next thing that happens is not necessarily standard song form, but it's worked for me quite a lot. So if we were to call the verse A and the chorus B, so we've basically gone A, B, and then back to A. And then what I do is I introduce a new section, a C section, which I would call a bridge, which then leads off into a solo section for a guitar, a trumpet, or whatever, which then leads you back to your chorus. And I kind of like to do that. So I've kind of like done verse 1, chorus, verse 2. So we've got like most of the story done, if not all of the story done in 2 verses. And that's kind of what I like to do. And then, so kind of like having told the story, now we're going to kind of go off in a slightly different direction. And the bridge might well actually have some different lyrics, which is what kind of happens here. It's just a one-line lyric. And what happens here in this bridge section is we've got a whole, not only have we got a whole bunch of different chords, but we have a key change. So we've gone from the key of D up to the key of E. And I'll show you how I get there. Sneaky as, but it's so effective because the listener is completely deceived and doesn't really realize that we change key, but we have. So out of this chorus, we go into that little 4-bar vamp like we would normally do going back into a verse. And then we go F over A. But instead of going back again, what we do is we go F over A, G over B, then to E major. Now you're thinking, how have I achieved that key change? Because I haven't done a normal 2-5-1. I haven't done, which is what we talked about the other week. I haven't gone. See, but I kind of have. As sneaky as. And the way I have done it is I've used this B note here in the bass as a chord 5 going to chord 1, which is E. So basically we're going 4, 5, 1 effectively. The bass is going 4, 5, 1 in the key of E. It's just I'm playing like an F and a G on the top of it. So 4, 5, 1. So it's a little bit sneaky. I've kind of substituted the chords a little bit whilst keeping the bass. It's the bass that leads your ear to the new key, not the chord changes. And it works just as well. Just Bob says, there a certain chord progression you like to use or instrument arrangement that you like to use to guide you through the story? No. I use lots of different sets of chord changes. Sometimes it'll be a blues. It depends. I mean, this whole song here came out of this little vamp. Which is essentially just C major 7, D in the bass, D9, all it is. And the whole song basically grew out of those chords, really. And it's really just one chord. It's just really a variation on D7. So yeah, it can depend. But as I say, the whole song just came out of that little vamp. So we end up in the key of E. And then what I do is sneakier still. And Woodbeast is here, and he says, I love sneaky chords. So do I, mate. And this is kind of what I did with this. So we've gone F over A, G, and then to E. And then what I do is a whole bunch of chords that don't really seem to have any relationship whatsoever. Having talked about how chords relate and how it's important that they relate and all of that, I kind of do something that's a little bit unusual. I kind of go around the houses a little bit before taking you off into the tenor sax solo in the case of this song. So what we do is it's a whole series of chords that are related by a third, either a minor third or a major third. So we go E to G, then to B. So basically you got so basically the bass notes are E, G, B. I'll play it a little bit higher up. E, G, B, which spells out an E minor chord. Okay, so we're going E major 7, G, and then we're going B7. But then I go to A flat 7. And here's the sneaky bit, because this is how we get to the solo section. So this is kind of all building up towards the next section of the song, the tenor sax solo. So I'm setting up for the tenor sax solo here, which is not in the key of E, by the way. So, but we're setting up for it. This whole section is all to do with setting up for it. So the melody at this point is carried by the horn section. Okay. And what I do, so we've gone E, so we've got E, G, B7, A flat 7. And so what I do next is sneaky. I do this little, I guess you could say rising bass line. So we go E, G flat or F sharp to G to A. And your ear tells you that you want to go back to here. Okay, so that tells you want to go. That would be ordinary. That would be what most normal people would do. And that's how you would get back to the key of D, by the way. Very effective. And I've done it again without using necessarily a traditional 2-5-1. I've substituted. I've gone E, G flat, and here's the, instead of going 2-5-1, I've gone 4-5, 4. There's G, chord 4 in the key of D, 5. Now I could go back to 1, and it would work just fine. Okay, but I didn't do that. I did something called an interrupted cadence, which is an extremely effective and powerful tool. Because if your listener is starting to drift off a little bit, because they're going, oh, where are we going next? I don't know where we're going next. I'm starting to lose interest already. Not only do I change key again, but I don't do it without I don't do it with a 2-5-1. I've gone 4 and 5 in the key of D, which is what the song is in. But instead of going to D, I go to E flat. Okay, it's sneaky. It's a deception. I've led you up the garden path of going by going E, G flat, G, A. So that should be familiar to you. That little vamp there should be familiar to you. It's exactly the same vamp as in the verse. It's just up a half step in the key of E flat. But you see, I've got to get back to the key of D for my last chorus. How on earth am I going to do that? With a little bit of jiggery pokery. Harmonic jiggery pokery is what I had to do. So we go E flat. And then we go D flat 7. And then we go to C7 with a flat 5. And here we have almost a 2-5-1. We go B minor to D with E in the bass. There's the 2. To E flat, which is substituting for chord 5. All right, so it works. There is a 2-5-1 to get you back into the key of D. It's just a sneaky 2-5-1. So the 2-5-1 is here. It's in on this D over E to the E flat. Build up the tension a bit and then drop it. And you're back in. And so all of that E flat section is the tenor sax solo. And the tenor sax finishes in the key of D. So we go, sorry. And then back into the chorus. And that's how that works. So the tenor sax is in E flat and then drops back down to D at the end. So, and then that sets you up for the final chorus. And then the vamp out at the end is just basically we go around this traditional vamp. And that's how we keep going around that until we fade out. So that, in a nutshell, is the arrangement of the song. So there are things to hook you in that keep you that keep the listener engaged. The little turnarounds, the little kind of fakey 2-5-1s where I've substituted the 5, for example, for another chord. You know, those are the sneaky little bits, and the reason that they're there is to serve a purpose, and that is to keep the listener going, hey, what's going on here? Hey, where are we going next? Hey, where are we going next? And again, it's things like using the horns to keep the listener, keep the listener from A, becoming bewildered by the harmonic things going on, and also to keep the listener engaged. Oh, there's a little bit of melody here from a different instrument other than my singing voice. So there you go. So I hope that has helped some people. I see that our viewership has dropped down to 9 from about 15, which is a bit of a shame that a few people had to go. But hey, so there we go. So anybody got any questions on that? And we've got about 15 minutes left of the show. And I don't mind overrunning a little bit because it's Bank Holiday Monday tomorrow. So I can have a line a little bit. So let's see. Yeah, it's Johnny. That's right. I think JL would agree with me. What am I supposed to be agreeing with? I'm not sure. So yeah, so I hope those kind of ideas will help you, give you some. I mean, obviously, not everybody's going to be working in the same style of music. So not everybody's going to be using substitution chords. Not everybody's going to use sneaky little chord changes like me. Even if you're using, straight down the line, D, B minor, G. There's different things you can do. Like, let's say your chorus, your bridge is your pre-chorus is gonna be in B minor. So how are we gonna get there? Okay. Well, when you get here, you could do this. A little A sharp diminished chord. And then F sharp minor maybe. G, A. All right, so do you see how I did that? I just used one little chord as a pivot. Now you could use the A sharp diminished, or you could just use F sharp over A sharp. And it'll have the same effect as leading you. There's your leading tone into B minor, okay? So you can go. E minor, B minor, E minor. Now getting yourself back to D. And there's your chorus right there. Okay? Really simple. That little bridge section with the B minor going to E, then the climbing bass. I mean, you could really, if you really want to stretch it out, you really could. You could go F sharp minor to G, E over G sharp to A. Or you could stretch out a different way. You could go F sharp, B minor, C sharp minor, A sharp minor. And then you've got to work out where you're going next from there. So from there you could go E, F sharp, G, A. And there you're into your chorus. So then if you want to change keys, say you want to do let's say you want to do a middle section or a bridge section, kind of like what I've done with Paper Deity, in a different key, to like a little 4 or 8 bar segue, if you like, into a solo section, which might be in a different key because maybe you've got a guitar player that is really, really comfortable playing in the key of E, but not really comfortable in D. Not very often that you come across that. But if you do, then here's how you can do it. You can just build a little 8-bar transition. You may go through a couple of different keys temporarily in order to get to the key of E. So let's see if we can make one up using this kind of D thing that we've got going on here. Okay, so here's our chorus. And we want this kind of this little thing to kind of take us to the key of E eventually. So you could go. Whoops. And then you're in the key of E. Okay, so what I did, I did this. So I went, as soon as I got through my chorus changes, I went D, A over C sharp, then G over C to B minor, then to B flat, major 7 temporarily, then A7 suspended 4, and then B7 suspended 4, and then you're into E. And then you've got to work out how you're going to get back to the key of D for your chorus again. Whoopi says those tips help with people that use Band in the Box or Easy Keys. Yes, yeah, Band in the Box is great actually for kind of arranging and working out different ways in which you can transition from one key to another. Band in the Box is really useful for that. You can practice those kind of things. You can experiment. You can just type in the chords, listen to what the rhythm section do, and then you can either like or you can discard. and you can work out what works and what doesn't from that kind of experimentation. And then once you've found something you do like and you do think, hey, that really, really works, even if it breaks all the rules, if it sounds good and it sounds right, then it is right, even if it breaks all of the rules. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, half of the stuff in here breaks every rule in the book. But what makes it work is how all the internal structure of the chord, how all the voices lead together. And, you know, half the time that shouldn't work. You know, I've got little turnarounds that should not work here. Like how I get to the key of E, for example. That shouldn't work, you know. F over A. That shouldn't work, but it does because of the B in the bass. That's the only reason why it works. Because the seventh, which is the D there, that's the only thing that works. But that's the seventh in E. So again, that doesn't really work. If it was a leading tone, that might work because that kind of makes it like a B7 sharp 5. So that would work, but that's not what I did. I could have done it. It would work if I did the B7 sharp 5 instead of G over B. That would work. Yep, that would have worked. It would have worked just as effectively. But I didn't do that. I did G over B. But it's the B that makes the listener go, oh, we've now arrived in E, because you get that sense of completion there. Just Bob says, I don't know if this makes sense, but the transitions you're talking about remind me of Southern Baptist gospel choirs. Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of harmony that I'm used to. You know, close voiced harmony, where it's all to do with the voice leading, whether it's the top or the bottom or internal voice leading within the 4 or 5 part harmony. A lot of Southern Baptist gospel harmony uses second inversion chords, so you know, those kind of sounds. You know, those are kind of common kind of sounds to a gospel tune. But yeah, so a lot of those kind of turnarounds, those will work. Deer Creek says, don't you think the turnarounds with snazzy suspensions need to land on something a little more exotic other than a plain Jane triad? Yes, they can do. They don't have to. I mean, this is the thing. You can build the listener up thinking they're going to expect something exotic like a major 9 sharp 11. But you can deceive the listener. You can build up their expectations. You can mount up the tension. You can ratchet it up to fever pitch level and then arrive at, you know, you can go, I don't know, you could go. And instead of going to this major 7 kind of 6/9 kind of chord, which is what I've got going on there, because there's a 6 there and a 9 above the 3rd. Instead of going there, I could go, you know, it all resolves just as nicely as it is, you know, as I went. Works just as well. Doesn't have to be, you know, it depends upon what you're trying to accomplish. It depends upon what your context is. Deer Creek also says long turnarounds some seem to be weird to me sometimes, and D to E is just common whole step modulation. Yeah, whole step modulations are common. Again, it's how you do it. I mean, the secret with this song was being able to convince the listener that they haven't actually modulated. So all the listener thinks is, instead of we've changed key, the listener thinks, oh, it's just become a little bit more exciting, or the sense of mood has changed a little bit. which is, you know, I mean, whole step modulation achieves that for you. It gives you a little bit of a mood shift. But yes, faking the modulation. And you do that with substitutions, which is what I did here, really. Is a little bit of what I call jiggery-pokery, substitutions, or even just an interrupted cadence, which is what I do with the going into the tenor sax solo. Is, you know, I've built everyone up like I'm going, you know, there's the E, the G flat, G11, A11. You think I'm going to D, but I'm not. I go to E flat instead. So there's that. So that's a modulation of a flatted fifth or an augmented fourth or a tritone. So I've gone to a key a tritone away, which really shouldn't happen. You know, nothing sets you up for it. I haven't set anybody up for it, but it works. It works. Woodby wants me to play the whole song. I can play through a little bit of it, yeah. I don't want to lose my audience by playing the whole thing again, but yeah. Stereolab is here. Good to see you, Stereolab. Thank you for coming. Says, good bands defy expectations. One of your favorites, Steely Dan, made a living doing it. Yep. Dickory says tritone modulations are of the devil. Well, yeah, that's what they believed in the Middle Ages. Yes, they certainly did believe that. They believed that the whole interval was the devil. However, popular music and most Western music since about 1820 is replete with tritone intervals. You can't play blues without a tritone. You can't play jazz without a tritone. You cannot play rock and roll without tritone. And you certainly cannot play popular pop music, R&B, that kind of stuff without a tritone. You need it. You absolutely do. The third and the seventh of a chord, those are the two most essential notes. So in fact, that interval there is the backbone of popular music since, you know, the late 19th century, at the beginning of kind of like the Tin Pan Alley era, which kind of began at the turn of the century, 1904, 1905. You know, piano rolls were being invented, and the first kind of song sheets were being invented. Nothing was really recorded at that point. Not even Buddy Bolden, the great blues trumpet player, the early jazz trumpet player, in actual fact, Buddy Bolden, who was Louis Armstrong's inspiration, actually, for a lot of his trumpet sound came from Buddy Bolden. But Buddy Bolden never recorded because he never really left his state. And at the time in 1902, 1903, when he was performing and pioneering a lot of what became early swing, you couldn't record outside of New York City at that time. So if you're in St. Louis or if you're in Kansas City, Kansas, you weren't really going to get to record very much because the technology was not that replete at that time. So yeah, tritones in every form of popular music we have now. Parallel fifths, did you ever have to avoid that in early composition class? Yes, when I was doing Bach, chorale, harmony, yes, had to do that. But I managed to find ways in which I could sneak in substitution chords into Bach chorale harmony. And nobody ever noticed me doing it, but I did it. I did tritonal substitutions in Bach, still following Bach's rules and still avoiding those parallel octaves and parallel fifths, but still managed to sneak in, you know, flat 2 chord substitutions. And none of my tutors ever realized that I was doing it. So there you go. Dickory says, I think some of the goofy classical composers made the tritone legal. I think it was just like that whole idea of that whole concept of the tritone being of the devil. The more you play an interval, the more an interval is used. Even if at the time, at first exposure, it seems really dissonant. Your ear gets used to it. You get acclimatized to it. And that's exactly what happened. People got acclimatized to the interval of the tritone. And then it became not a problem. It's just simple. It's just simple, you know, progress, development. You know, it's like, you know, when Charlie Parker first burst onto the scene, in 1936-ish when he was playing with Cab Calloway. You know, when he was taking his solos, he was trying stuff out that became bebop, and he was trying out tritonal substitutions on the fly. Nobody had ever heard them before because nobody was doing them at the time, and he was he was doing them. And you know, there were gypsy jazz musicians who were kind of in the early 30s that were beginning to experiment with them. People like Django Reinhardt in particular and Stefan Grappelli were beginning to experiment with flat five substitutions a lot. And I think Charlie Parker was exposed to that to a degree, but you know, he was doing it on a scale that nobody else was doing it. And you know, I think Louis Armstrong basically said he was playing Chinese music, strange chords and strange notes that don't fit anywhere. That was what he thought. But, you know, progress was that, you know, the bebop revolution, it was revolutionary at the time between 1945 and 1955, 56, 57. It was revolutionary. And then, you know, by the time 1960 rolled around and John Coltrane was on the scene, it was standard. Bebop was just standard. It was just, that's jazz. No different than, you know, Glenn Miller, really. Everyone had acclimatized to it. It was the norm to play, you know, Charlie Parker licks in a solo. Everybody was doing it. So it's just how the world works. It's just how the world develops. Just Bob says Mississippi Delta had Charlie Patton, Blind Lemon Jefferson, and such recordings circa 1908. Yes, that's true, but you know, it was not commonplace. New York City was really the place where you were most likely to be able to record. And then, as you say, the Mississippi Delta. Yeah, there were small recording labels out there that were just beginning to emerge, but really everything was still being done on a wax cylinder and, you know, a cutting stylus, and you're playing and standing around this great big horn, speaker horn, reverse speaker horn, effectively. So there you go. I kind of diversed a little bit from the point there, which I have now lost, by the way. Thank you. Deer Creek says he had a dog named Bartok. I love Bartok's music. Can I play it? No. Bartok was a genius. Just realized I've not had a drink break. Was that a pick or an etch? I don't pick my nose on camera. And now Deer Creek is getting into modes like Locrian mode. Yeah, I used quite a lot of modes. I used Dorian, Mixolydian, Ionian, Aeolian, all of those. All right, we are at 8 minutes past 1. I'm going to take a couple more questions, then we're going to wrap this up. So we've looked at how you can use key changes really effectively in your song and how you can deceive your listener into the fact that you've actually changed key altogether. What else we looked at? We've looked at hooks, little hook points, turnarounds, and then kind of making the chord changes of your chorus kind of related to your verse. I mean, they are really. I'm starting with the same chords. I'm keeping it simple. I mean, it sounds really complicated what I'm doing in this song. It sounds really, you know, really crazy, complicated song, but it really isn't. The only bits that are complicated are the turnarounds and, you know, how I change key. But everything else really is just really simple. The chorus change. The chorus chords are really simple. It's just D, G, B flat, then F and G. And then back into the vamp. In my verse, maybe it's a little bit more complicated. Because what I'm doing in my verse is I'm going D, and then I've got this weird D flat major chord, which is kind of like it's like A flat major with a D flat in the bass, which is kind of like D flat major with a sharp 11, because there's a sharp 11, to C minor, then to F. None of those chords are particularly related, but they all lead to this chord with the G flat major 7, which you think, yeah, how is G flat related to D? But it kind of is. If I was to take away some of these notes here, if I was to simplify that G flat chord into just a regular triad, the common note here is the G flat, right? Because the G flat occurs in the D chord. It's third of the chord, so. And you know what? If you listen to music that goes with like movies that are set in kind of in places like the Middle East, or if you watch something like Ben-Hur, for example, you'll hear those kind of chord progressions a lot. Those major third progressions, F sharp, D. You know, to give you kind of a sense of something exotic, but it's still kind of related. So if I then strip this away and make this a 5 chord, so based on A to D, 5 to 1. What we're left with, if I take away that bottom F sharp and just turn this into a first inversion chord, we're basically left with A7 flat 9, which resolves to D directly. So that F sharp major 9 chord is directly related. It's effectively a substitute for chord 5. And Deer Creek says your bass lines are tying things together too. Yes, they are. Yeah, the bass notes most definitely help, and passing tones as well. Yes, passing chords as well. Yeah. Just Bob says, I think Ferry Lewis was ahead of his time, probably as influential as Robert Johnson. Oh yes, I would agree there. I think he was ahead of his time, definitely. Whoopi says, can you leave the bass notes out and play a melody with the chords? Yes, you don't have to have a bass line if you don't want to in your song. You know, there's no rule that says, you know. Oh, do you mean in my vamp, that kind of thing? If I take out the bass notes here, so we get if I play my verse, just the right hand. Okay. So they're all kind of, there's lots of, you know, kind of, there is a melody there, essentially. It's kind of like, you're kind of like around there, isn't it, really? Yeah, so suppose the top note of the chords actually does provide a little bit of a counter melody. That's a good observation. And then, so the second time through this set of changes in the verse, So we get the first time through, we get. And then the second time through, we go. And then it changes. Then instead of going to the F13, we go F major to E to E flat. And that's the little turnaround. Play a melody with the chords. I thought that's what I was doing. Can you leave the bass notes out and play a melody with the chords? I thought that's what I was doing right there. Of this particular song. Decrease says your chord changes inspire many melody notes, taken from interior notes, top notes, bass notes, almost unlimited. Yeah, you could derive a whole bunch of different melodies, I guess, counter melodies. Yeah, I'm sure you could. Woodbeast says using both hands. I'm not sure I understand what you want me to do, Woodbeast. I thought I was playing a melody with the chords. I thought that's what you wanted me to do there, but yeah. Anyway, it is now 1:15 in the morning, and I have run over by an extra few minutes, like I said I would, because I don't mind. But as I say, it's a bank holiday Monday tomorrow, so my wife is not working, so we're going to go out of town for the day. And hey, you may have noticed, I'm not drinking tea tonight. I'm drinking orange from a Budweiser beer glass. Just Bob says, just wanted to thank you for doing these shows. Yeah, you know what? I hope actually that this little kind of whistle stop tour through Paper Deity and kind of like how I put the arrangement together has helped. And if anybody has any further questions on arranging and how I actually came up with the arrangement for this song to make this particular song work, then let me know. Drop me an email at johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk and subscribe to my email list if you haven't done already. Get yourself subscribed to that. As I say, you get my compression video series, you get the stems to Chanel, which you can mix to your heart's content, and practice this style of music, because some of you might not be particularly familiar with mixing this style of music, and if you're not, then go for it. Grab those stems. Get yourself on my email list, and also, as I say, you'll get the heads up on when my VIP memberships launches, which will hopefully be very, very, very soon. We're so close to having it ready. So I'm going to be starting to put up the first batch of content into the members area so that when it's ready to launch, it is sitting there and you guys can go and take a look at it. So that would be that. As I said, we're moving July 2nd. So there will be maybe a period of a few days when the studio is not operational. And as I said, I believe that's a Monday. So I might or might not be doing Songwriting Simplified on that Wednesday, but we will see. Maybe the Wednesday either side, I might not be able to do them, but we will see. We'll see how we go. I might have to just Skype in using my phone. We'll have to see how that goes, because I might not have this. All of this might be packed down by that point. So we'll see how we go for that. But anyway, as it goes, this coming Wednesday, Songwriting Simplified over at Johnny's Place. And Johnny's Place, Johnny's YouTube channel, and I will be there, and I will be. I think we've actually got a talking point for this week's show. I think we're going to look at. I think we're looking at changing minor keys. I think we're talking about going from major to minor. I think, and how you do that, how you accomplish that really effectively, because it's a little complicated, but once you've got it, it's really simple. So Dickery says, I hope the new digs will fit your SSL desk. Yeah, I wish I had an SSL, But on the other hand, I'm glad I don't, because you know what? They're phenomenally expensive and they are ridiculously hard to maintain and look after. Believe me, I know, because I worked in a studio in London which had an SSL E console, one of the SSL 4000s, and it was a great console, and I learned pretty much everything I know on that console. I'm really quite happy with my Studio Live 16. Maybe later down the line, maybe I will swap it for a 32. Who knows? I don't know. But as I say, I'm pretty happy with my 16 right now, and everything is cool. Now the cool thing is, when I get to my new place, I am going to have way faster internet. And yes, my friend Warren Hewitt does have an SSL. He does. And he would probably agree with me that they're a pain in the butt to maintain and look after. Especially, you know, if a channel dies, you have to lift out that entire channel strip and then slot a new one in. Get hooked up with him. Yeah, Warren and we are friends. Bizarrely, I know his parents, bizarrely, because his parents live down in Cornwall in the southwest of England, and I lived down there for a long time. And I used to go and play cricket in their village quite often, and they would quite often be over at the cricket club watching when I was over in their village playing against their team. So there you go. Just Bob says, weird day, threw a prayer out asking for resolve for you and your family, and then a freestyle in the park vid popped up from you. Oh, well, that's great. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Deer Creek says, we expect snazzy new album covers when in the new lounge. Yes. Yeah, I am subscribed to Warren. I have been for a long time. And he is amazing. He's a great guy, and he is fantastically English. He has the most adorable English accent. I love it, and I think he's a fantastic bloke, and he's so passionate about what he does. And he's a real credit to our community. So I would basically say, if you guys are not subscribed to him, go over there right now and become a member of his membership site as well, which I forget what it's called now. ProMix Academy, I think it's called, or something like that. So, and he is very humble. He is absolutely, you know, as humble as he comes across in his videos. He's that kind of guy. So, all right, guys, I'm going to split right now. It is 23 minutes past 1 in the morning here. So 23 minutes past 7 Central Time. So I want to get going and get a little bite to eat before I go to bed. So I will see you guys on Wednesday over at Johnny's on Songwriting Simplified. So until then, bye for now. See ya. And yes, just Bob, I'm going to be praying for you, buddy. Thanks a lot, mate.